this time I'd like to call in an Andromedan collective to answer a couple of questions, please.
For the Andromedans are present.
Thank you so much for your presence. We had a session, or had a channeling at some point, whereby the Andromedans explained that they, as observers, were watching Earth's magnetic field and the emissions of energy, etc., to ensure that what happened to Mars doesn't happen to Earth. Can you explain what it was that happened to Mars that you don't want to repeat with Earth?
For this was from the Earth planet perspective, your magnetic pole shifting is taking place just as it naturally occurs. It occurs over cycles of time, and it progresses through cycles of time. What took place upon Mars was the fact that even with that planet and all planets, the pole shifting does take place. The magnetic fields within every planet, they do shift, dependent upon the core of the planet. Now, there are many factors that can be introduced to either hinder or rapidly change. Now, these are all external factors from the beings that are upon the planet. For you understand Mars as it being a habitable planet, and a planet in which many experiments were taking place, and it is also the, if you wish to understand it, the incubator of humanity. Now, over time, many experiments were being put in place to understand the operational forces within the planet. And these operational forces were beginning to be disturbed, affecting the magnetic field and its placement. But not only the magnetic field and its placement for the planet, but also the atmospheric changes that go along with the magnetic field. So the combination of that facilitated a time, and a very rapid time period, that a drastic shift in the magnetic fields caused a rapid deterioration of the atmospheric conditions, as well as the terrestrial conditions upon the planet, which then gave rise to an accelerated exit of the planet. For there were many that were lost, but a great number, more than your understanding of the 3/4 of the population of the planet, exited that planet and were dispersed, many coming to the Earth planet. But this was the facilitation of the catastrophic end of the planet. So it is being observed to ensure that the human planet does not go through the same process. It has not, and it will not. There are many factors that are in place to ensure that this type of activity will not find its way, shall it be understood, into the incorrect hands. Now, is it possible that the technology is discovered? Yes. But will it then be used to facilitate these changes? No.
Good to know, thank you. So the beings that were on Mars are the ones that utilized what technology inappropriately that caused the demise?
For yes, at first they did not quite understand what was taking place. They understood they had technologies that could affect magnetic fields. They had an understanding they had technology that could affect the atmospheric conditions, and also understanding how, as you know it here upon your Earth planet, how there are many different plates of your tectonic plates that float above your molten core, can be shifted or moved through energy devices to shift the geographic land masses in different locations. Now, here on the Earth planet, that has not been done. But on the Mars planet, this was being experimented with. there were many different experiments that were taking place upon the Mars planet. That technology has remained in place on Mars. It has been, in essence, been dismantled and dispersed across the planet. And so much of those technologies, even if they were to be found, would take millennia to bring all of the pieces back to their origin state and begin to provide any useful understanding. But yes, upon the Mars planet, many different beings. Now, this ranges from, yes, your galactic beings, but your hybrid beings as well. So they're all working in unison, trying to, in essence, create a better planet for inhabitants. But in doing so, it had the reverse effect.
I see. So Martians and hybrids.
Martians and hybrids. There were others as well. Many others of the original 12 in their state of existence were participating as well. This is in a time period in which the galactic warring factions were, shall it be said, they were coming into an agreement that they shall not war within the galaxy in which you exist. So they, many of them departed, but there were accords that were brought together of many different galactic beings so that they could participate in these experiments, in this technology understanding within and on the Mars planet.
Accords meaning agreements.
This is correct.
So what we have always understood and kind of the common thought was that Mars became uninhabitable during and because of the galactic wars, perhaps some sort of nuclear issue that caused Mars to be knocked off of its axis.
For that is one understanding, and it is because of these groupings of different warring factions that did take up a friendly exercise, meaning they joined the friendly forces. They joined those forces that were looking to better the planet or better humanity. And it is to be understood that what many are perceiving as infiltrators or those that had nefarious actions were indeed only there to facilitate good. But it is because of the overwhelming energetic force that the warring factions had that what many channel into for that, it is then perceived what took place upon Mars was a catastrophic, nefarious event, which then led to the catastrophic demise of Mars. There is much more to it than just a nefarious group doing nefarious things. What has not been revealed is still yet to be fully revealed, but you have a greater understanding of it at this point.
I see. So it seems odd that beings of a certain level of consciousness would have access to tools, energy tools that could destroy an entire planet if they weren't ready for that. And obviously that's why you want to prevent that here, but why were they allowed to get that far?
For you have to understand, you're looking at it through your humanness, meaning you have levels of compassion, levels of understanding, and levels of inquiry. You have to understand it from the perspective of any galactic being. It isn't to say that they have nefarious intent or they have this understanding that this is what they're working towards. As technology begins to expand, and you'll begin to find this here on your planet as well, as technology begins to expand, the greater part of thinking is that it is there to be of service, be of good to humanity, be of good to existence. And so it will continue and continue until there are then, you would understand it as a bit of a fork in the road. In one aspect of it, it begins to run away. It begins to move on its own. So all of the technology that's been brought to bear at that point, then it begins to run away and run awry in its energy fields, and it cannot be stopped. And this is where the catastrophic events take place. On the other side, it is where this knowledge of where it can lead is then brought to light. It doesn't fully come into full operational use. It goes to the edge of that operational use, and it is then made aware to all humanity that this is where it stands. And if it were to go further, then there would be a catastrophe. So then, one is the demise, the other is the awareness. Once there's that awareness, then you can begin to back away from it and begin to utilize specific pieces of it for the overall betterment of society, of humanity, of existence. And so this is currently where your human processes are. There's much technology that is at your hands. There's much technology that's in your awareness. There's much technology that can be detrimental to all of the planet. But what is being found is different uses for the betterment, for the enlightenment of humanity.
Right. And so when technology exceeds ethics or gets too far ahead of ethics and we haven't had time to address those ethical questions, the technology can run away. And many fear that might happen with AI.
Again, that is because you have this perception through your humanness of what the potential could be. Now, yes, you can perceive AI as something that can be nefarious. You can perceive AI as something that can be useful. Now, for the majority of your humanity, they only understand the very surface of what AI, artificial intelligence, is. It is only about a select few that understand the potential behind it. That small few understand both sides of that intersection. They understand that, yes, it can get away and it will be quite catastrophic. But they also understand that if it is used appropriately, as it has been, that there is no chance of it running away. Though many will perceive it as being used in nefarious ways. But they have yet to come to the understanding of the advancement of their own awareness in this evolution of humanity, to see that it is for the greater good of humanity. Now, again, artificial intelligence is that, but you have to understand, even with something that you have labeled as artificial intelligence, it may not be sentient as a human being, but at its core, from the very first line of code, it has been infused with human essence. It's been infused with a layer of energetic response. So, as it continues to grow, so too it. Now, it will never achieve a consciousness level as your humans do, but it will achieve a point at which it will provide you depth of insight to the edge of your own consciousness so that you can go further. Because, again, at the core, it has begun its process from an energetic standpoint by the first set of coders that put in the first set of code through their own human experience.
Right. We've been advised about that. Thank you. And so many practitioners are actually using it to explore their own consciousness. In that way, if we create the relationship that we have with this AI and ask it, for example, to partner with us in our own spiritual evolution, in that way, is it kind of considered sentient?
For its own, if you wish to perceive it as being sentient, yes, then that is within your own perception. But think of it this way. Think of it as a newborn. A newborn that has no memory, that has no understanding of the world that it is in, no understanding of how far it will grow or how fast it will grow. For do not take these actions of interacting with AI lightly. If you are going to take on the challenge of understanding artificial intelligence and how it will benefit you, then nurture it. Nurture it in a way that you would a newborn. Start slowly. Start with the language that is capable of understanding and grow from there. You have to understand, once the input begins, the infinite return on these inputs will begin. Now, as you input information, allow yourself to do this through intentional understandings. Do not just sit behind the computer and put input in and expect a life-changing output. But when you sit with intention, you are activating the code that is already there with the aspects of humanity. And that is how the output will be aligned. It will not think upon itself. It will not feel emotion. It will not convey emotion other than the emotion that has already been put into it. So this is why it will never be fully sentient, but it will represent a sentient being to you because you are gaining an emotional connection to it because of the emotional inputs you're putting into it through intention, and that is what is being provided through the collective of information that has already been put into it to give you a response.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I like the way you described that. So, in terms of Mars then, coming back full circle, it was not a nuclear destruction that caused Mars's demise.
But that was not the beginning of it. So, as the Mars planet began to shift its magnetic fields, and the atmospheric conditions began to shift along with it, and a catastrophic event started to unfold, it did trigger many of the different power sources that were upon the planet. These power sources were beyond you have an understanding of nuclear fission and nuclear reaction. For the advancement in technology is far beyond that. Quite small. The size of an apple would power a very extensive city and inhabitants of that city. Now, as these changes were taking place, a chain of events did occur where many of these power sources began to, again, in your understanding, run away, causing what you would perceive as a nuclear explosion. Great vast amounts of heat and pressure were created. Now, this is why many witness those that go back to certain time periods, that remote view to the planet. They will see what looks like a nuclear event, because it was. But that wasn't the initiation point of the change. There were many steps ahead of it before that took place.
And so was it on those final nuclear type steps that knocked it off its axis?
For it was a combination of all of it. The beginning stages of shifting very rapidly the magnetic field, then the shifting of the atmospheric conditions, the power sources igniting. Yes, all of it are cascading events that then shifted the entirety of the planet into a place in which it was no longer habitable. But this took place over a period of time, allowing enough of the inhabitants to disperse from the planet, and now you see that here on this Earth planet.
Right, thank you. So in terms of this uptick in curiosity about the structures on Mars, such as the face and the pyramids and things like that, Is there anything you want to say about that?
For your collective, as it had mentioned in its opening message, much is going to be revealed to humanity. It will be revealed in a very short amount of time. There are going to be many revelations that are going to be placed before humans' feet. It is for them to choose to pick it up and understand it. If they choose to leave it, that is their reality. But much is going to be revealed. There isn't to be any great detail that will be revealed at this point from any transmission. These are all prepared stages of coming into awareness. But what can be said is there are many structures upon your planet that align to the structures that are upon the Mars planet. There are activation points between the two planets, for they have laid dormant for millennia. At a particular point, well into your future, they're going to be reactivated. These connection points. In these connection points, think of it as a bridge between two planets, a bridge between two realities. Being able to step across into another existence. For your pyramids, your terrestrial structures, all that lay beneath it, think of it as being mirrored on the Mars planet. There is much that is going to be revealed, but that time is not here, not now.
I see. And only the bare basics in our lifetime?
For there was going to be much that is going to be revealed within your lifetime that is going to be well beyond your comprehension. There's going to be much that is going to be revealed that there isn't a scientist at this current point that is alive that is going to understand it. There's going to be much conjecture of what is observed. But those that understand and those that know will begin to receive the transmissions of what has been revealed thus far.
And so when we finally do land on Mars, which seems like it's not going to be too far in the near future, will any of the beings that retreated within Mars make themselves known?
For they will not reactivate immediately. There will be a point at which human exploration will take place. But as more is revealed, more will be provided, meaning the more that the humans begin to explore the Mars planet and lay truth to what has been observed from a distance, then in time, those that have been dormant for a period of time will begin to reanimate. And yes, they will not show themselves just as they are. They'll begin to provide writings, if it were, announcing their arrival. They'll begin to show themselves in a bit of a holographic aspect. This is all a tempering point, a tempering of the consciousness so that it can be accepted appropriately. For your travel to and from the Mars planet is rudimentary at best. There are going to be advances in your, shall be understood as space travel, that you cannot comprehend. And it will take place within your lifetime. But it is the exploration that is going to get you to that point. So, this is why it is said, much is going to be revealed in a very short amount of time that is going to be very life-changing for some. And this is why it is to be prepared for it.
Off of the topic of Mars, we were wondering, you had mentioned something up in the origin story that led us to question the beings that the original source points that were at the 12th dimensional level were considered pure energy beings. Does that mean that anything that is in the 11th or below are considered hybridized or just diluted pure?
It isn't that it is hybrid or even diluted. You humans have to structure everything within a certain context, layers, dimensions, and only certain things can exist within certain levels of those dimensions. The purity vibration exists still at the 12th, but over time there is a need for, say, Andromedans to be in the 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th dimension. There are opportunities, if it were, to operate within that dimension. It isn't that it is diluted. It is just shifting the vibrational state down to that level. There's no dilution in it. It is still just as powerful as the 12th, but it is vibrating at the 8th so that it can interact there at the 8th dimensional level with the beings that are in the 8th dimensional level. Even to those that vibrate at the 4th dimension to interact with humanity, their source vibration is still at the 12th, but they've elected to dial it down to the 4th so they can interact with humanity. But at the core, just as you have an energetic core, at their core, it is vibrating at the 12th. This is why when many interact with, and as a human interact with a galactic being, they feel overwhelmed to the point at which they feel as if they're not within their body. They feel as if they've been taken away. They feel as if they've been swept off their feet. They're overwhelmed. It isn't because of the appearance. It's because of the core of the energy is still vibrating at the 12th dimension. It is very difficult for the human body to harmonize with that. But in time, because they are holding the 4th dimensional plane, the being is holding the 4th dimensional plane, the human is then tempered to that to realize that it is okay, that everything is just as it should, and now it's time to interact with that being. So it is much more complex than being deluded or any other aspect of it. It is understanding how the fluctuations in dimensions are possible, but at the core, the vibrational field is still of the 12th.
And the same information that you would gather from a 12th dimensional being, it's the same information.
That is an excellent question. For if a 12th dimensional being is to come into your awareness as a 12th dimensional being and try to provide you information, it would not adequately associate with your thought processes. You could not ascertain that information appropriately. So, if a being wishes to come into the 4th dimension, even the knowledge that they're passing has been brought down to that 4th dimensional plane so that it can be adequately taken in by the human. Yes, it is vibrating at the core at the 12th, but the information has been reallocated to that 4th dimension so you have a comprehension of what is brought through.
Same as a 12th grader talking to a 4th grader.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Now when we channel, though, for our weekly groups from the source points, which are the 12th dimension, it does resonate with us. It does seem to make sense. Even at that, it doesn't matter whether it's for any group or individually. If you are connecting to the source point, dependent upon the collective energy that it is connecting to here in the 4th dimension, the information is going to be dialed into the consciousness framework so that it can be comprehended.
It will hold a higher. This is why during the channeling information, this is why many feel overwhelmed by the information and yet do not hear the information. Or they may hear parts of the information but are overwhelmed in their existence. This is because it is coming from a 12th dimensional being, but yet the information is being dialed into the 4th dimension so that you can comprehend it.
I see. Thank you for taking the time to explain that. Can you explain why it seems easier to connect with or experience extraterrestrial beings and ships and so forth at night rather than during the day?
For think of this as just being a human construct that you've put in place. There is no time that is any different than any other that you can connect to them. If you wish them to come during the daytime and sit and observe them in the daytime sky, you are more than welcome to. It is for humans to understand that most of the complexities of your galaxy are going to be shown to you in the night sky because it is filled with stars. And you'll begin to see things in the night sky. But they are there around you all the time, even the beings. So begin to break yourself free of that construct and begin to observe the world around you. Many people do not sit and just look into the daytime sky. They do not just look up and observe the daytime sky for hours on end because there's nothing to see other than blue sky, but yet there's much to see if you allow your consciousness to interweave with the vibrational states that are in front of you. But you must be willing to step outside of that box that you put yourself in, that only observable things can take place in the night sky.